Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Access to Justice Board open session for December 5th, 2025. And hopefully everyone has received the agenda. Before I begin, I kind of want to remind folks that we invite everyone to use the chat to share thoughts and questions related to today's agenda. However, to help us to stay focused and respectful of everyone's time, we kindly ask that the chat and meeting space be used only for discussion relevant to the meeting's purpose. Please keep all communications respectful and constructive. If these guidelines aren't followed, we reserve the right to close the chat and mute guests for the remainder of the meeting. This will really make sure that we're allowing for inclusivity and belonging and ensuring that people's individual space are being respected and participation can be fully completed by all the board members for today's meeting. All right. Well, welcome everyone. I see there's a couple of folks here. I see Sarah. Welcome, Sarah. I see Michael Terasaki. I see Sarah there. I see Kari. Nice to have you here. Are there anyone else that any other non-board members here today? I think that's it. All right. Well, hopefully everyone had a chance to get the meeting agenda items for this meeting. And so we'd like to go ahead and review the November minutes, which is on page 3 and 4. And if there's any amendments or changes, and if not, I'll entertain a motion. So folks have any questions?
I move to approve the November minutes.
Okay, thanks, Chrissy. Anyone second?
Second.
All right, thanks, Lolly. For board members, all in favor of approving the November 7th minutes, please raise your hand. Anyone oppose? Any abstentions? All right, so the minutes pass. Great. So let's go ahead and go to the next item here, which is the Justice Gap Charter. And hopefully folks have received the charter. And so I'm just going to do a quick overview of what that charter talks about, and then also ask for any questions that folks might have before we decide to take action on this proposal. So a couple months ago, myself, Francis, who is the BOG president, met to talk about some justice gap solutions and ideas about how to address some of the needs to address some of the gather information and to address some of the justice gap needs of Washington State. So under the purpose, I'll just go ahead and read this out loud. The purpose is a joint initiative of the Washington State Bar Association and Access to Justice Board to review existing data, research, and feedback gathered about communities in Washington that have historically been underserved and marginalized with respect to their legal needs, and to use an equity lens to evaluate innovative solutions, including those that have been implemented elsewhere. Based on this review, the group will recommend to the Washington State Bar Association and to the Access to Justice Board which solutions should be pursued in Washington, how they should be prioritized, and what roles the WSBA and ATJ board should play in its implementation. The workgroup is not charged with designing or implementing solutions, but rather helping the Bar Association and ATJ board identify how to prioritize its resources and role in advancing solutions. Under part 3, as you can follow along, where basically this scoping work group is going to be conducting a comprehensive review of existing data, reports, and research on communities in Washington whose legal needs are going unmet. And it lists the different focus areas that the committee will be, or the work group will be looking at. We'll also be conducting a comprehensive review of current efforts to consider solutions that align with or leverage existing licensing, regulatory frameworks, programs, and entities in Washington, which includes alternative pathways of licensure, the Entity Regulation Pilot Project, APR 6 Law Clerk Program, and Limited License to Practice Law, APR 8 Part C. We'll be conducting a comprehensive review of the existing strategic guidance and then consulting with entities and individuals that have knowledge and experience relating to the task force. Examine and then also making recommendations to both the ATJ board and the Bar Association. As you can see, the timeline of this is going to be fairly fast. The timeline is hopefully that the scoping group is going to be working in the next 4 months to just gather the information, analyze the information, and making recommendations to the Bar Association and to the ATJ. Does anyone have any, as you can also included here are some of the decision-making aspects and also membership. And I know that some of these memberships folks may have some questions about or some comments about who will be part of this. Again, this is really a scoping group. And so it's just really going to be a work group to gather the information that we need to make an appropriate assessment. We'll also be looking at other different models across the country. There's been very, very unique, as you know, at the Access to Justice Conference, there were some individuals from different jurisdictions to talk about community justice workers as a potential model and other types of models that will be really helpful to really consider as how the ATJ board should review these different models and pathways to ensure we're looking at different ways to provide access to justice. Are there anyone have any questions about this Justice Gap Solutions work group? Okay. Any questions about the purpose, the objectives, the deliverables? Timeline is very quick, so 4 months, but it is we are trying to gather as much information. So it's really going to be up to if this is a joint program with ATJ and the Bar Association Board of Governors. We do want to kind of move this quickly. I believe it is on the BOG's agenda, I think, to discuss. And so I'm not sure where they are on this particular proposal, but it is something that we're looking at partnership with. So, any questions? Any questions from non-members or non-board members? Please just raise your hand and we can call on you. Sarah? Yeah, you set your hand? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I just put it in the chat, but
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
yeah, no worries. I would just ask that our office have a representative on the scoping committee. I mean, I think that we are in parallel working on a lot of these same issues through pipeline programs and things like that. And would just have, and I also think we are probably one of the entities that will have a fair amount of data on different programs. So that would be my request.
Okay, thank you. I do see that there is one representative from the civil legal aid community appointed by the ATJ board, but that doesn't really specifically call out civil legal aid. I don't know if that, that's a good question of whether that includes
Yeah.
OCLA.
I would assume that that would be a provider, but maybe not, because I think it's important to have both a civil legal aid provider and someone from our
Yeah,
office.
yeah,
I think we have kind of different things that we're doing.
yeah, yeah. That's a great suggestion. Any other questions or any other comments? Thank you, Sarah. All right. Board members, do you have any thoughts about, and like I said, I don't know the process, and Bonnie, Diana, feel free to chime in if that's something we can make any amendments to this document. Yes, Diana, I see your hand up.
Yeah, so the charter is a draft that both the ATJ board and the Washington State Board of Governors are reviewing, and either entity or both may say, oh, like for example, in the membership, we should include someone from OCLA. And so I think you can say, yes, we'd like to do that. It's sort of nice because you're considering it first, just because you happen to have a meeting in December and the BOC doesn't. They'll be considering in January. So if you were to want to add that, then that would be helpful for the BOG to know, because you'd say, okay, we would like to add this, and this is what we've approved in December.
Mhm.
And then the BOG can consider the charter with
Okay.
your what you decided in January, and then go from there.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for that. Thank you for that process, because this is the first time I'm familiar with a WSBA ATJ joint scoping, and so I didn't know if it has to be one or the other that can make those proposals. So it sounds like we can that is something that we can include in the draft if board members approve that amendment to this Justice Gap Solutions Scoping Work Group. Any questions from board members? Anyone have any discussion? Because I think that this is really the opportunity for us to really think about the objectives, the deliverables, and membership. I think the timeline is pretty much talking to Francis, he really wants to get this moving fairly quickly. And so that's why the 4 months is a pretty quick timeline, but we also is just a scoping part of this project. It's not implementation, it's nothing else, it's just scoping, gathering information. Anyone else have any thoughts around membership? Oh yeah, Maya.
Yeah, I agree with adding Office of Civil Legal Aid, like a member from that, because of the data, especially like the civil legal needs. And I was just thinking, is there anybody else that we may be missing or wanting to make sure? And the only one that I could think of is like maybe like somebody from like AOC, or thinking about somebody on the access to justice, or in regards to accessing the courts, and they might have a lot of data on that too. So I was just thinking of others that we might be missing when Sarah mentioned that.
Maya, were you thinking of, oh, go ahead, Diana. I see your hand up.
Yeah, no, I was just going to give, so in the membership there, it says 3 representatives from the judiciary, including court staff, which could include someone from AOC or more than one. And then I was just going to give a little bit of background on, because Bonnie and I were part of the group that helped draft the charter along with Mike and some others. Originally, the membership list was twice as long. And we were going around of like, how do we have this group get together and be inclusive, but then also, scheduling and trying to do some very focused work in a short period of time. So that's why we created the section on, trying to see where it is, page 6, where we commit to consulting with a variety of different groups, including the law schools, Office of Public Defense. So that was a way of making sure those voices are part of the process, but they don't have to commit to this kind of intense work group over this 4-month period of time. So I just thought I'd give that background for folks.
Yep. Thank you, Diana. And then I saw, Chrissy, you had your hand up for a little bit?
I was just going to say exactly what Diana said, that there was this whole long process of trying to figure out who should be there and how to make this go quickly, and a giant unwieldy group. So there was a lot of discussion and intentionality around trying to figure out who should be at the table. So I don't, all that to say, I think Okla with the data is a great addition personally. Mm-hmm. But there were reasons why they cut the list down. I was a part of that meeting. Mike was, Diana. Yeah.
All right. Any other discussion? Okay, so I'm going to close discussion. And so do I have a motion and potential amendment to the membership for the Justice Gap Solutions Scoping Workgroup?
I move to approve the Justice Gap the Justice Gap Solutions Scoping Work Group, with the amendment of adding a voting member from the Office of Civil Legal Aid.
Okay. Do I hear a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, thanks, Sergio. So it's been moved and second. Is there any discussion around the amendment or the motion? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to a vote. So please raise your hand if you approve the Justice Gap Solutions Scoping Workgroup draft that was sent in the agenda, with the amendment of adding a member from Okla as a voting member. Hopefully I said that correctly, Maya. Okay, please raise your hand if you approve it with the amendment. Okay. Raise your hand if you disagree or dissent to these proposal or amendment. Okay, any abstentions? Okay, so it's been moved and approved that the ATJ board has approved the Justice Gap Solutions Scope Work Group, and we will amend to include a member from OCLA as a voting member. And Diana, Bonnie, would you be able to share that addition with the Board of Governors? I see Kari's here too, so Kari's is definitely a representative. It's nice to have you from the Board of Governors here. All right. Thank you all for your participation. One thing that we will also, part of the work group solution part is also identifying, it says here, the ATJ board will be will be a co-chair for this. And so one member of the Access Justice Board appointed by the ATJ board. And so I haven't reached out to any of you directly about this, but if you are interested in being the co-chair with one member from the WSBA appointed by the president to co-chair this work group, please email me directly after this meeting. And so I will, if I don't get any volunteers, I will be sending out a nice little email asking a member of the ATJ board to participate. It is going to be a lot of data gathering and a lot of analysis, and it's going to be a lot of work in the next 4 months, but it is something that I think is going to be instructful of how we want to move forward. So, Ollie, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, just something to add to that. On the
Mhm.
scoping committee, there are limited spaces available for lived experience folks. So if we do have a board member with lived experience, of course, everyone else is welcome to join, but um, it would be great if we could maximize the amount of lived experience folks that we do have on this scoping committee. So yes, if anybody is interested, please let me.
Yeah, thanks, Ollie. Great. All right. We will now move on to the next topic, which is Judicial Ethics Opinion 25-04. And I'm going to hand it to Maya.
Yes, thank you, Mike. Hi everyone. Sorry, I came down with a little bit of a cold, so um, voice is not completely there. But um, the last time we met, we had a discussion regarding within the tech committee, there was a judicial ethics opinion that was released regarding a text message that would be given to folks regarding service. And the judicial ethics opinion stated that that would be ex parte communication, so they could not do it. And we thought it was just information. It wasn't any sort of legal advice. And so we decided to draft a letter to state that maybe they could revise or repeal their opinion to make it where it's more accessible for non-represented litigants, and be able to use technology in a positive way, right? Because that's what we want to promote within the technology committee, is not only putting parameters on technology, but also letting the court use it when it can be very beneficial for folks. And so with that, if you go to page 13, we drafted, well, somebody from the technology committee drafted the beginning sort of letter to address sort of the issue at hand and why we believe it isn't basically what they said within the opinion. And then it went to the rules committee to see if there's anything regarding the rules stating that the judicial ethics opinion was correct, and they found that it was most likely incorrect. And so they agreed with the letter, as well as added sort of a suggestion in terms of if they don't want it to be exactly how it was written, how the court wanted to maybe adapt it a little bit in terms of making it where it's very general information regarding, not properly committing complete service of the complaint may impact your case moving forward, not necessarily stating that it would be dismissed, which is how I think the court wanted to state it. And so I think I would love to have anybody. This seems to be a very important issue for folks in the technology committee and in the access to justice space. So we really want to make sure we send this letter timely, but I would love to hear anybody's comments, concerns, questions, but would like to approve this letter so we can send this to the folks to maybe repeal or change the opinion. And if you go to the letter, it will directly to the ethics advisory opinion if you would want to read that.
Thank you, Maya, for that update. So it's my understanding it is a recommendation from both the tech committee and from the rules committee to recommendation to support this letter to the ATJ board. Okay.
Yes,
great.
and to send it off.
To send it. Yep. And the letter is going to be sent to Chief Justice Stevens, and hopefully folks have had a chance to review this letter. Are there any questions from board members about the content of this letter? Okay. So my understanding, since it's a recommendation, and Bonnie, correct me if I'm wrong, if it's a recommendation from the Rules Committee and ATJ, does it need to be a motion, or is it still need to be a board motion?
If it comes from a committee, that's considered the motion.
The motion, okay. And do we need to have a second to that
Mhm.
motion?
Yeah.
Yep. So any board members second this motion, and the motion on the table is to approve the letter as written to be sent to Chief Justice, and it is to ask that it be that the Judicial Ethics Advisory Opinion 25-04 be revised or withdrawn. And with explanation as to the reasons for that is in the letter. Anyone second? Maybe I missed it when I was reading it.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Carla. It's been moved and second. Any other discussion on this topic with the letter? Okay, hearing none, close debate. And please, as a motion, please raise your hand if you support sending this letter. Raise your hand. Okay. Anyone opposed? Please raise your hand. Okay, so it's been moved and approved. We'll be sending this letter this month, probably after this board meeting. And we will see, and we'll also kind of keep track of kind of what happens with this too, because it'll be also good, Maya, to kind of track whether this opinion is changed or amended or withdrawn. So it'll be good for us to kind of keep an eye on that. So thank you. All right. The next topic I have is the Court Efficiency Workgroup updates on House Bill 1909, and it's Maya.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and I'll keep track of the ethics opinion. But moving on, this is right before the legislative updates, but the Access to Justice has been having a court efficiency work group that's been meeting monthly since around June. We sent out we sent out an email to those folks to see if we would want to continue meeting during legislative session, because we know it can get really busy and whatnot. So if you haven't replied to that email, please do so we can coordinate and see how we want to connect and keep the conversation moving in the new year. Or if you are interested in those conversations, please reach out to Bonnie or I. But the action at hand is within the next legislative session. This depending on the status of the bill and if there is still a fiscal note, it will be either back at the Civil Rights and Judiciary Committee or go to the Appropriations Committee. Anyways, there could be a hearing for this bill. And we could be able to sign in pro or be able to testify. And so we're sort of asking the Access to Justice Board the green light to be able to do so if there is opportunity to testify or sign in pro for the Access to Justice Board. This is going to be our bill that we sort of support throughout the legislative session. Antonio will be able to explain sort of where the legislature is at for next year, so it could give us a little bit more understanding in terms of the viability of it, but still would love to get the green light to be able to do so if and when necessary.
All right. So I'm hearing that as a motion. Is that right, Maya? That the motion is to approve the support or green
Hmm.
light to support. And is it going to be also named as House Bill 1909, or is it going to be, it will still,
Yes.
okay. Thank you,
Yeah,
Antonio.
because it's
I
the same
have no idea if
It's
it
the same
changes. I
it's
got
the
it.
same legislative session. So any of the
Okay.
bills from last year will just be carried over.
Ah, great. All
Hmm.
righty. Yeah. All right. So my understanding is to support. Are there any questions? Is there a motion? Is there a second to this motion?
And to give background,
Yeah.
just for folks who may not know, House Bill 1909 is to create a task force to discuss options on making the court more efficient. One way being maybe court unification, but it would be a group of folks within the task force that would come up with recommendations to the legislature. Just wanted to give that background.
Yeah. No, that's helpful. So it's kind of like the scoping group. It's just gathering information, design, and making some recommendations as to ways that we can make the court more efficient. Okay, great. Is there a second to the motion that Maya has put to the floor?
I can second.
Okay, thanks, Chrissy. Been moved in second. Is there any discussion or any questions that folks have or any amendments they would like to make? I guess I have a question for Antonio, and I know that you're going to be doing an update. Are there anything else that you think we should also consider or know about this? And I don't know, I'm putting you on the spot, not to do it intentionally, but intentionally I am. But is there anything else that you think the board should know about this particular bill or what, what support could look like?
Thanks, Michael. You're not putting me on that spot. There's a couple of things that I would consider. Is one, it is a work group, so it does have a fiscal note in terms of like what it takes to logistically pull together a work group. It's a couple $100,000, but it is such a bad environment in Olympia, and I'll talk a little bit about this in my presentation, that I'm worried about any new programs, any new task forces. They're probably less likely to move next year. It's just something to keep in mind. Also, it's a short session, so I'll talk a little bit about the timing of when this bill will need to be heard before it's, and if it isn't heard, whether it will be dead very quickly in early February. We just don't know. But I mean, that Chair Taylor is the chair of the committee that will hear it and may want to have a hearing about it as well. That's where it's going to go back to. So I think Maya's right. We're just sort of keeping an eye on whether it is, whether it's going to get heard, and be ready to testify in favor of it when it does, if it does get heard. If not, legislative processes are not just 1 year, 2 year processes. You're getting ready for next year as well. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Great. And then I probably have a question for either Diana or Bonnie, because do you see any concerns with the ATJ board testifying or providing information on these particular bills? I don't, but I was just wondering, just from your past experience with the ATJ board participating in this.
Yeah, I'll jump in. The board is its own entity, so as it relates to the bar, the Washington State Bar, the board is free to do what it wants to do, and in the past they have testified for different bills.
Mhm.
However, it's nice just to let the bar know that that's what it's doing, and actually, specifically would be helpful because this topic is one of the bar's legislative priorities. So Sanjay Walkavar, who's the legislative manager, would be the point person just to, and I think he may already know about this work group, but just to keep him in the loop, so you could coordinate. But this is actually one of the things that the board approved in terms of their own legislative priorities.
Yep. Okay. Great. Thank you. Any other questions from the board members about this particular motion? All right, so I will close the discussion. So we will move to a vote. So all in favor to basically support ATJ's motion or the motions to be able to testify and support Bill 1909 into this next legislative year, please raise your hand. Okay. Anyone who is opposed to that motion? Okay, the motion carries and will be reflected in the notes. Thank you, Maya, for your work on this, and please let us know how we can support you or whatever testimony or information that you need. You'll probably be the point person who will be testifying if it does go to committee. I'm just giving you a heads up on that, so be aware.
Yeah,
You might be
I'll track
called.
the bill. I'll track the bill. No
Great,
problem.
great. Thanks, Maya. All right, let's move on to the next topic, which is legislative updates by Antonio. And I know you already started with that, and so I'm glad that you're
Thanks,
able to
Michael.
continue on.
Yeah, let me just a quick intro for folks. Antonio Gineta, I'm the policy director at CLS. CLS is just one of many groups, civil legal aid groups that work on legislative advocacy in Olympia. And in terms of context, I always just like to say, because we don't seek or receive state funding, we typically are outside of the legal aid funding conversations, but clearly this is an issue that you've got on your agenda later, and Sarah will be able to talk about it as well, much better than I can. So, but yes, so big picture, because I think folks are most interested in the timing and what's going on. Legislature starts on the second Monday of every year. That's January 12th. It's a short session. That's a 60-day session, and it's a real sprint. So the first cutoff for bills is February 4th. That's the policy cutoff. That means that if your bill is not heard and voted out of the policy committee by February 4th, 24 days after session starts, it's dead. It's not moving forward in this session. So it's going to be very quick. So we're going to need, for 1909, for example, you're going to really want to see it scheduled before, I would say, before the 30th. I mean, you've got to give it enough time to actually be heard and then voted out. So that's two different hearings usually. So, but you'll know very quickly if this thing has any traction at all. One of the reasons why we do short sprint sessions is because usually the budget is talked about in the odd years, and so that's the larger 105-day session. But the budget is really still very much the driving factor of what's going on in Olympia. It's not just the budget; it's the budget deficit, and I think that's really going to drive a lot of what's happening. The most recent news came out of Senate Ways and Means yesterday. So the legislature is actually has been meeting Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of this week, but this is like preseason. This is called committee days. They show up, they do work sessions. They're not voting on bills or anything like that, but getting the legislators back into shape to get ready for the sprint. But at Senate Ways and Means yesterday afternoon, committee staff detailed that there could be as much as a $4.3 billion hole in the state budget by fiscal year 2029. That's a huge number. I know we've been through sort of a deficit posture over the last couple of years. We're there again, and it is pretty stark. I think, it's been in the news recently that Governor Ferguson is going to propose an all cuts budget. This is but the governor has to propose a budget, a balanced budget, and that comes out in the next couple of weeks. That type of budget obviously is going to take 4.3 billion out of the budget is going to hurt a lot. And obviously, a lot of folks are really angry about the sort of all cuts posture by the governor and his, I would say, lack of interest or opposition to embracing new revenue. I think he's had a bit of a bumpy start as governor, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here. He may think it's premature to embrace revenue right now, but once community sees what a 4.3 billion, what a large cut to the budget would look on an all cuts budget, maybe it's really going to motivate the conversation a lot more about it's going to mobilize community to push for more revenue. I feel like that's the dynamic right now. But that first budget that's going to come out in the next few days, next couple of weeks, is going to be painful. So all of that information is really informing the way CLS is approaching session this year. We are clearly, primarily, almost solely in a defensive posture. We are shelving policy advocacy efforts that are new or that cost any kind of money. So they're also in the news about appropriators saying they're not going to let things through the fiscal committee that are new, that cost money. So, for example, we've been working 5-6 years on this issue of trying to create sort of a state mirror to the federal unemployment insurance program, federally, the program that receives federal money, but it's not available to undocumented workers who are unemployed. We've been trying to create sort of a state counterpart to that. That is a big program. It is a new program and it costs money. This is not the year to run it. So we're just going to take a pause, maybe do some data collection, storytelling, but getting ready for next session because this isn't the session for that bill. It's hard. There's lots of folks who worked on it, but we've got to make some real decisions here. We need to focus on bills that don't have a fiscal note and to defend the newer programs that could be at risk of cuts. For one, issues like the Apple Health expansion, which does create a Medicaid-like system for folks who are undocumented. So it is a grim picture. I don't want to sugarcoat any of it, but I think it's important to be ready and know what we're walking into. So I know that's quick. That's my overview. I'll put my name in the chat. The one thing I do, please reach out to me. You got any questions about session? I want to be your resource. I'm available. I'll send you my email. Please reach out if you've got questions for me. Thanks, Mike. That's what I got.
Great. Thanks, Antonio. Are there any questions from board members on the legislative update? Antonio, I just have a question. Are there anything that you think, I know you've been really focusing around new programs, and things like that, but are there any existing programs that you know of that may be impacted I know you don't have a crystal ball, or you have a crystal ball that may be really cloudy, that would identify other access to justice issues? And I'm thinking about it from access to the courts or AOC budgets or things that are, or OCLA budgets or things that are specifically that may be pared down, that might be in the governor's proposed budget.
I do not know how the governor is going to decide how to mete out the cuts, and how it's going to look like. I can't get into, I just don't know the strategy there.
Mm-hmm.
And my my position is, if it's anything is at risk right now, is you have to approach any of your programs at potential risk of reductions or larger cuts. I think that's the smart way to do it right now. So if it's out there, it's at risk of an appropriator and again making quick decisions under this sort of rapid fire session to make a decision that could hurt community. So I'm just approaching it like everything's at risk. Be ready, and fight for the things that you got.
Okay. My second question is, do you see a role with ATJ on these conversations when they are, when these budget questions come up? Do you see ATJ board? And I'm just saying this because it's going to be such a short session and it's going to move very, very quickly. And we only meet once a month, and sometimes things move within hours.
Yeah, I mean, we got caught by surprise last year with some late decisions that we didn't expect in terms of cuts. So relationships with legislators about the value of these programs, those conversations, they should be starting now, is my sense. Yeah, it is a again, like I feel like there's nothing that if you're walking in thinking, oh, my program is safe, I think you're walking in with that is a naive way to approach this type of session right now. I think you've got to go all kinds of defense. I do think that there are places to keep talking about how we're doing this work. I do want to mention that I'm talking with some colleagues in the civil legal aid arena about what position civil legal aid should be taking on issues related to revenue. It just a broader, not just in terms of like protecting our programs, but just the impact of what are very much, I think, our broken system, our regressive taxation, the impact it's felt by people who are of lower income, and what position we should be taking there. I don't think we've have taken a official position and we've stayed away from it at CLS, but maybe it is time that we as a civil legal aid community needs to be embracing that conversation a little bit more. So I'm reaching out to folks and seeing if maybe we can create some sort of unified voice to say it's time to support revenue efforts because our communities are particularly suffering under the current systems and will suffer particularly under an all cuts budget.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Any other questions for Antonio about the legislative update or any other questions, comments? All right. Thank you, Antonio, for this update. It's great to see you. And yeah, please keep us updated on things that we should be aware of about that, especially around 1909, since both you and Maya will be kind of tracking that particular bill. All right. The next on the agenda is the Post-Goldmark Luncheon Forum, and I'm going to lead that conversation, and I'm going to share an email that I kind of sent out a little bit earlier. I'm going to go ahead and just share screen just because I'm not sure if folks got this. I don't think I sent this to the board in particular, which I probably should have now that I thought about it now. So I'm going to share this because one of the things that we talked a little bit about at the last ATJ board meeting, hold on, let me share that, hold on. Folks see the screen? Yeah? Okay. Yeah, because I can't see folks now. So one thing that we talked about, and I also am glad that Michael's also here on the call too. We talked about some ideas about how we would like to have the Goldmark Award luncheon, and it's basically the forum that's after the lunch. So I think the approximate time is about 1:30 until 3 o'clock. And the space is available. It's going to be at the Westin Hotel. Hopefully, folks can attend. It's on February 27th. I know that Caitlin sent out save the date, I think last week or the week before, and hopefully that's on people's calendar. And I thought it would be really helpful for kind of drafting a concept of kind of what we can do for this Goldmark forum. And so, like I said, this is a forum that's right after the luncheon. And I kind of created this thing based on some of the conversations we had on the board to talk about like what could this focus on, you know. And I think the idea is when Michael and I, Terasaki spoke with who's the DISCO co-chair with I, and then also kind of thinking about what are some innovation, like access to justice innovation. So kind of coming up with that kind of concept. So I kind of spent some time thinking about what innovation could look like and kind of what could be the purpose of this, because I think that's where the board was trying to figure out, hey, if we're going to do this, what could be in that realm. So really what I did was I kind of crafted some of the work from our strategic priorities plans from the access to justice and integrated it into some topical topics that we would kind of like to bring attention to, elevate. And so here's the idea for next year's idea. I'd love to get people's feedback. And then second, would like to have what are some groups or topics we want to invite for this. It's coming up on February 27th, so we actually need to make some decisions at this meeting, whether this is the concept, what groups to invite to the forum, so that we can start getting speakers for this. So the purpose will focus on innovative and cross-sector initiatives that meaningfully address emerging, challenging, and create relevant, impactful, and lasting solutions to advance equitable access to justice. Topics will amplify systemic efforts to eliminate barriers and inequities within the legal system by organizing and advocating for community-centered equitable policies and sustaining resources that empower communities most harmed by poverty, racism, and other forms of oppression. All of this language actually was not something I just crafted from my head. It was actually from our strategic plan of combining different plans of kind of like what are our strategic priorities. And then I write, selected topics are encouraged to incorporate ATJ board strategic priorities below. These are the priorities that we set forth last year, then we adopted last year with the work of Jennifer and Michelle, which is guiding vision, fostering alignment, collaboration, building collective capacity for strategic action, catalyzing systemic change, and stewarding values and culture shifts. So these were the 5 priorities that we have as the Access to Justice Board. The program idea would kind of follow like this. We would basically do quick welcome and introductions to folks who are attending the forum. We would do welcome, we would do introductions, and then program overview. And the idea that the concept that I kind of have in my mind, but like I said, this is just a proposal, you know, and love to have input, would be kind of like 3 like TED Talks. I don't know if folks have attended TED Talks where it's like a mini presentation really addressing the why, what, and how. Like, why is this important, what it is, and how is this going to, further access to justice? And I was thinking it would be kind of like 3 TED Talks, for the full group, and then we would do a breakout Q&A sessions, kind of like something we did last year at the last forum where we had breakout sessions and then reconvened. But the topics are going to be real specific to innovation, like innovation topic 1, 2, and 3. We would then give presenters 5 minutes to do PowerPoint, share their why this is important, what it is, and how it really furthers access to justice. Breakout sessions, we could break out into either different parts of the room. I think that was, and coordinate that. And then a closing remarks, like what were some of the takeaways? The breakout sessions would be more of a dialogue, like people asking questions, people providing comments, thoughts, different ideas, and then we would come back. And these were some of the, here's a list, actually, I don't know why it's here, but I think here is a list of some topics that I had engaged the DISCO members with, and I wanted to kind of get folks to, to think about would be, do people still see the screen? You do? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, perfect, because for some reason my screen kind of blanked. Here it is. These were some of the topics that were suggested by some DISCO folks: immigration enforcement, impact of government cutbacks on benefit programs, attacks on voting rights, and responsive to attempts to disenfranchise low income. But all these are really big issues that and we can also frame it as like, what are some innovative ideas to address some of these immigration enforcement, impacts of government cutbacks? What are some ways that community is, how to address some of the attacks on voting? Some other topics that we kind of talked about, like the community justice workers or the Justice Gap Work Group that we just approved today. The Court Unification Task Force, which really it shouldn't be called that. It should be called the Court Efficiency, not Unification. I was thinking disability access because that was a topic that came up during the Access to Justice Conference that we had earlier this year around the task force and some work that might be some solutions around access. And then other topics that folks have. Didn't know if folks, if any of these topics would be aligned to this. I did ask for feedback kind of late because I tried to send it out earlier, and when I sent it on the DISCO listserv, it bounced back. So I think I did something wrong, but I did send it yesterday afternoon. But if folks have topics or ideas, be open to that. So I guess what I'm asking from the board and also from folks who are attending this meeting is, my first question is, what do people think about the objectives and the outline for the program? And then number 2, what would be some topics that could be aligned with those with the purpose or objectives of the forum? So I am going to see if there's anyone have any questions for me. I'm sorry I don't see folks here. Oh, I see Mike. I see your hand up. Sorry about that.
Hi, everyone. Not really a question, but I wanted to give a little bit of background on the format. The 2 pieces of feedback we always receive after the Goldmark session, kind of workshop that follows the Goldmark lunch, is that 1, people love hearing what everyone else is doing. So this checks that box really well. And then 2, people just want time to be able to connect with each other and talk with each other, because the Goldmark lunch itself isn't so great for catching up and networking. So I think from the provider or the attendee standpoint, this really checks both of those boxes. So I'm excited about this format. And I'm looking, I think most of you have probably been to one of these sessions, but it's really great. I think this would be a good format to do that. Just wanted to throw that in there. Thanks.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Michael. Thank you for providing that information. For me, the reason why I was really trying to emphasizing on innovations, because I think that there's something that sometimes gets lost, is that some of the good work that's being done and also the innovation. Like, I know that, after hearing Antonio's presentation around budget cuts, the challenges against what's going on with the Trump administration, on immigration and other issues. I also wanted to highlight in the hope of what we can be and not lose sight that access to justice is really thinking about forward, like what do we do in light of some of the challenges that are happening? And those are the things that I think, I was hopefully trying to emphasize and then also incorporate some of the strategic priorities the ATJ board has around really thinking about innovation, cross-sector initiatives, bringing people together in collaboration, and just hearing about what are some of the really important work that's happening in our state. So I am not married at all to this concept or this idea. I think it's so important that when we do forums that we be clear about what are the objectives and aligning those objectives to the purpose of the ATJ, bringing in disco members because they're the ones doing the work. They're the ones who are actually out there, ensuring equal access and access to justice to all of their communities that are so important, and really highlighting some of the work, whether it's Team Child, whether it's work that's being done by Northwest Immigrant Rights Project, whether it's stuff that's being done by the board or by the BOG, I should say. So. Does anyone have any questions for me or any comments?
I think this looks great, Mike. I think it looks really thoughtful. I think it accomplishes the goals we were looking for. And I agree with you that in the climate that we're in, looking at even small innovations, big innovations too, but small innovations, I think would be a really good use of that time and give something inspiring for people to walk away with. I mean, the Goldmark Luncheon is inspiring in and of itself, but
it is.
I hear Michael's Terasaki's point of people want to get together, people want to network and know what each other are doing. And I think especially in a time of scarce resources, which is we've been there, but we're moving even more into that space that makes it even that much more important to do things like this.
Yeah. Thanks, Chrissy. Hi, Sitlali. I see your hand up. Oh, Sitlali, I think you're on mute still.
Sorry about that. I do think innovation should be a topic, and along those lines, maybe combining it with immigration. And then when we're talking about immigration, really pinpoint the details we want to go over. I think something that's really important and often overlooked is the undocumented community, right? When it comes to funding, when it comes to services, when it comes to eligibility restrictions, that community specifically is often overlooked, and they are continuously ineligible for services. And I think that it falls in line with innovations, but then also, as we just heard from Antonio, many of those new programs that are coming up are not going to receive the funding that they should be receiving. And we should take this time to really bring together those service providers and keep their dreams and projects alive, and then see how we can support each other across the state. Because even if we can't receive funding for it this year, next year, until 2029, that doesn't matter, but we need to keep those conversations alive and not lose hope for those programs and for undocumented folks.
Thanks, Sitlali. Any other questions? And I'm sorry, I don't see everybody. I only have 6 boxes, but feel free to come off mute. Okay, so I'm going to kind of bifurcate this process. So around the concept. So is there a motion to approve? I don't know if I can make the motion, but is there a motion to approve the concept for the Goldmark Forum regarding the objectives and outline of the program?
I move to approve the outline and the objectives for the Goldmark Luncheon.
Okay, great. Thanks, Chrissy. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Maya. So it's been it's moved and second, first and second. It's been moved and second. Is there any other discussion? Okay, so I will close discussion. So all in favor, and like I said, we're going to bifurcate this so that we know the purpose and objectives, and then we'll talk about topics. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, all opposed to the purpose and outline? Okay, so it's been moved and it's been approved. The motion has been carries. All right, for the second part of the motion, the second part is what are some topics that we want to do? Like I said, I think we're going to need to make some decisions today. What are those topics so that we can reach out to organizations and really kind of say, hey, this is what we're looking at. Are you available? Is this something that you have capacity to do? And so forth. So these were some of the topics that we received from DISCO members. I did get one person who did say that they like ideas 1 and 3 from DISCO members, but I'd like to hear from board members and also any um, non-board members if they have any thoughts or inputs around topics that would be aligned to our objectives and to the format. So I did hear Sitlali, I will just call Sitlali because you did talk about undocumented. And so I think that topic 1, because that was something that we were kind of, that was one of the topics that was, proposed by DISCO member to focus on was immigration enforcement. But I also hear yours is a little bit different. Yours talks about funding for undocumented. And so I just, that is a little bit slightly different. And I just want to kind of call that out on that. I also see kind of what you're talking about too, Sitlali, is number 2, which is impact of government cutbacks on benefit programs for undocumented. So I see that as kind of between 1 and 2. And like I said, I am not these are just suggested topics. We can really refine these and then identify what organizations who would be really great to engage in this conversation. Anyone, and then we can also expand this list too. I mean, so don't feel like this is an exhaustive list. But I'm thinking we would just choose 3 topics, but we would want to try to engage people this month so we can ask them.
I guess I would just have a question. Are there parameters that we would want to make sure that these are the most relevant to the work of the folks that would be attending? Is there some kind of lane we should be thinking about staying in, or some, considerations in that regard that might influence which one of these are most appropriate to this audience and what we actually have control over as a group?
I don't have an answer for you, Chris. That's a great question because I don't know. If folks, Diana, Michael, Bonnie, do you have any thoughts on that question? Or Maya? I see your hand up too. And
Carla had her hand up before I did. Go ahead.
Oh, Carla, you're on mute. Oh, you're still on mute, Carla.
My gosh, there we go.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. No, I was going to say, if you were going to speak to what was just talked about, then you go ahead because I had something else.
Yeah. For the folks who will probably be in the room, I mean, it's a lot of I think almost everybody from the legal profession goes to this luncheon, but a lot of civil legal aid providers do. So I think around immigration would be really nice. I think around the government cutbacks, specifically around SNAP, would be really great. So somebody from Solid Ground. There's always issues with Social Security, but I think it would be more pertinent if we did SNAP. And then I think around the community justice workers or the justice scrap work group thing would also be really great, because it could give us good feedback from folks in terms of what to think about in terms of the justice gaps.
Are you thinking the work group? Is that what you're talking about, Maya?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that one. Okay. I'm just going to underline things that I'm hearing, and folks can tell me if that kind of captures stuff. So, Carla, we'll go back to you here if you have anything to add or something different.
Well, I had something different. I was talking about legal aid agencies and Miss Sue at Seattle University would know about this. There's a new legal aid agency that we did a training for that was a collaborative effort between attorneys and law students. And so maybe it would be something interesting to bring forward just the conversation that it's possible to to like create new kind of forms of legal aid in collaboration with other legal aid organizations, or if the communities work together, that we can create more legal aid opportunities for people that need legal help in our communities. So that might be something that we could talk about.
Would that be kind of tied in, Carla, to the conversation around community justice workers? Or is that something different, or do you see that kind of separate?
I think that's separate. I think that would be separate.
Okay.
So if I could jump in, Carla was an
Sure.
amazing presenter for one of our pro bono days that we host here at Seattle University School of Law. And one of the things that we have been working on over the past year is not just training for our law students, but actually inviting attorneys to come in and join our pro bono days. So Carla, are you specifically talking about the DDAAP, the one relating to disability rights that we hosted? Because we did also have one for immigration in relationship with kids in need of defense in our externship office.
I was talking about the DDAAP program.
I think one of our pushes at Seattle U Law right now is to try to empower our law students to work with attorneys in the community and also in conjunction with legal aid organizations and Office of Administrative Hearings so that everyone can partner together and receive training. And after that, our law students move forward with the attorneys as mentors to continue that good work. And so we always welcome those types of partnerships. I know Maya has reached out for one in the fall already. So hopefully we can continue those.
Yeah, and as we talked about, the declining volunteer hours for attorneys, I think tapping into the law student population is such a win-win, because it gives the students like hands-on experience, working on real cases, and it helps the people in the community that need the help. So I think that like maybe having a focus, I think it's a really positive conversation, which would be, I think, good to have in this luncheon. I'll stop.
Great. No, I love this. I love this. I mean, this is kind of why we have these conversations, because I think the more we talk about it and think about it, and Lily, if we were to kind of do something similar to that, I mean, do you think that that program, you probably have some ideas of people who could come and speak and talk about innovations of how, because I actually think that it addresses, Carla, exactly what you said, what Chrissy shared about concerns around, like, how do we get more attorneys to volunteer and do pro bono? I think there is a big need for that. And I think this is an innovative concept about how to bring law students with working with attorneys on these particular issues. So I think that
I think certainly from the law student standpoint, we can recruit some law students, and just so that everyone knows that the disability one where students and attorneys were trained to represent people before the Office of Administrative Hearings included Gonzaga, UW, and Seattle U law students. So it wasn't just Seattle U, but Seattle U was a location of that. I know that for the Goldmark Luncheon, the public interest scholars from GU, UW, and Seattle U always get one table together. And I believe each law school also invites other law students, but certainly for those students that were particularly involved in either the kind pro bono day or the one with representing clients before the Office of Administrative Hearings, I believe we could recruit students that would be interested in participating. This February, I think it's February 7th, we're working with the Asian Bar Association of Washington to have a training that would include attorneys and law students who want to assist with clinics with the Chinese Information Service Center.
Great. Yeah. Diana, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I was just gonna say on logistics, in speaking to Chrissy's question about the audience and Lily talking about students who may not necessarily just come to the luncheon, but I was just gonna note that this event historically has been like who happens to come to luncheon, and then since people are here, let's all continue to meet. And we've also let people know like you don't have to come to the Goldmark. This is open to anyone. So keeping that in mind, it might be helpful to sort of uh, amplify our marketing in terms of this
Mm,
event. That yes, we love for people to come to Goldmark, but this you don't have to come, and this is for everybody. And just doing a little bit more outreach
yeah.
to make it
Yeah.
more inclusive.
Yeah. Yeah. Which supports the idea we need to get this show on the road so that we can do some effective communications on this. So yeah. Well, I think we have some great ideas. Is there anyone else have some ideas on topics? Because I'm hearing a couple of them circulate, but I also want to just make sure that we're kind of aligning to this objectives for this forum.
I
And
have
like I
not
said,
a fully
oh
formed
yeah,
thought, Michael. And
yeah,
I
that's
can
okay. No
respond in
problem.
disco too. I haven't yet. So this is not a fully formed thought, but just front and center thinking about the legislative session from the perspective of Team Child's work.
Hmm.
Which is, as all of these social service cuts are happening, the thing that doesn't get cut is the criminal legal system as a response and the sort of intersection of when we take away people's economic stability. I mean, I just heard a great story on KOW that crime rates are going down nationally, but what we're investing in as a state are still expansion of juvenile prison facilities and looking to Department of Corrections. And so in these times where we're cutting back these positive community development, youth development services, we're still continuing to invest in criminal legal system and what the sort of long-term overlying impacts. And I just think about our conversation from ATJ conference and other things about the intersection of civil legal aid and criminal representation. And it's another category of folks who are often excluded from services and programs because of having criminal records. So just it's not a fully formed
Hmm.
thought, but just relevant, I think, to a lot of things that are going on right now and thinking about the civil and criminal system silos that occur sometimes, but then how as a social system, we're cutting a lot of the positive supports for folks, but still paying for prison.
Yeah. And what I'm thinking, Sarah, is like, how do we, is there a way to frame that in a way of like, what are some innovations with access? And that's the
Yeah.
piece that because I think there's a lot, I think that's what's wonderful about this conversation is that we're focusing on the impacts of lack of funding or lack of, but what are things that organizations are doing to try to overcome these challenges? Is it to build relationships? Is it just think about, hey, we need supportive services that prevent people from even getting into the pipeline, things like that.
Yes. And I
So
think there
that's what
are
I'm
a
just
lot of
trying.
innovative
Yeah,
services that could be highlighted as part of
yeah,
that challenge. I mean, I think
yeah,
we're doing some innovative things, but I think there's a lot of folks doing reentry work in this
yeah,
state and then nationally that could highlight some of the ways to push back on some of these trends.
yeah. Okay. Hi, Carla. I see your hand up. Oh, you're on mute again.
There we go. Oh, I'm really I'm struggling today. So like there's I think a lot to be said about like the alternatives to incarceration and and really addressing like the school to prison pipeline and the programs that are being developed to kind of like um, to help kids not go that direction, and that would be something where we could address the issue but have a positive hopeful future spotlight on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Can't even find my words today. I apologize. I'm gonna stop.
yeah, yeah. One idea that came up to me, and I'm going to probably put a closure to this because I know we have a couple more agenda topics, and I want to make sure we get through them today so that we can have a nice hard stop at 11:30 today. I know we have about 19 minutes left. One idea also was, I know that there were some, that Caitlin sent out. Here are the community grants that have gone out, and I saw there was some, maybe highlighting some of the work that these grants have done, in terms of supporting programs. And I don't have my email open here, but there are just a number of, organizations that have really, have received these startup grants. And that could be something that we highlight some of the work that's being done on that end. So I don't know if that's something that we could also explore on topics. So, all right. Well, this has been really helpful. I don't know if we are going to be able to kind of narrow these ideas down, but I think the executive committee can have this on the agenda to to gather this information and come up with some succinct topics for this. And then I like the idea that Diana said, is that we could probably push this out to community members to say, hey, this is something we want to have further conversations. And I think these are all really wonderful ideas. And it could be something that we want to continue through next year as well. Just have these more regular forums that could be just virtual that people can access to learn more about how to get involved or some of the upcoming innovative ideas and ways to align this work. So, okay. Any last minute input? Great. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing. The next topic is on the road planning update, and I've been doing a lot of talking. Oh, we probably lost somebody here. I've been doing a lot of talking about on the road planning. Oh, yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Can I give a quick legislative update? I actually have to hop off to get to our oversight committee meeting.
Okay. Yep. Please.
If you don't mind, I'll make it very quick and really more just want to answer folks' questions, if there are any. OCLA is not, we don't have any policy asks. So everything that we are working on this session is around budget and money. So you can imagine how our meetings with legislators are going. Every meeting we go into, they're like, you're not here to ask us for money, right? Well, actually we are. And all of the decision packages that we have are, continuation, ongoing funding for existing programs. These aren't anything, we're not asking for anything new. One little piece about like the governor's budget. So because we are part of the judicial branch, all of our decision packages are automatically in the governor's budget. All of judicial branch funding requests go into the governor's budget. Does that mean we are safe? No. Because then it's the legislature's job to then decide from what's in the governor's budget what goes into the House and the Senate proposed budgets. And of course, the governor has more discretion, at the end with the final budget. With all that being said, our top priority remains eviction defense right to counsel. And the reason for that is because we were fully funded for fiscal year 26 and not fully funded for fiscal year 27 in the biennial budget. The thought was that, maybe evictions are going to go down by fiscal year 2027. And what we've seen is what we had been calling historically high numbers of eviction filings at about 2,000 filings per month statewide. That is now just like that's what we've seen basically every month over the last 2 years. Give or take, a little bit, but we are seeing record numbers. So, hopefully, as we're talking to lawmakers, some are saying, some are considering this maintenance level funding. You're asking for what you already have continued into fiscal year 27. I am going to hang my hat on that and continue that mantra of, because if we don't get that, that's 2,000 clients a year that will go into their eviction hearings without a lawyer. And we know that it costs the state significantly more money when people lose their housing and end up, not that everybody ends up in our homelessness system, but many, many do. So I do think, I think the thing that is the most important from access to justice is where you have existing relationships with legislators. It doesn't even necessarily have to be about a specific like about a specific decision package or about a specific, um, you know, thing, but just the importance of civil legal aid as a safety net. Like I really think about legal aid as part, equally as important as all of our other safety net programs, like food assistance, like healthcare. People lose access to those safety net resources without a lawyer. And so really just like emphasizing with legislators and in those conversations, how important legal aid really is, that it's not, it's not an extra thing. It really is part of our state safety net, which is why our office was created, 20 years ago, was because the state recognized that, that legal aid is part of our state's responsibility to low income folks. So happy to answer any questions if folks have specific questions.
Okay. Are there any questions for Sarah? And thank you for that background and information. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
All
I'll
right.
see you guys later.
Enjoy your next meeting. Yep. Bye-bye. All right. So I'm going to kind of move through quick because I know we have about 11 minutes left here. So on the road planning update, so the board has identified two areas where we would like to do on the road instead of having one that we did last year. One we had this year. Next year we're looking at two on the road. One of them will be in Spokane, Washington, and I know that Chrissy and Sitlali, but I think she had to jump off to call. We were starting to kind of plan that out. I believe, Bonnie, do you remind me what dates we were looking at? It was sometime in May, correct? Because I know that we're looking at certain dates that would not coincide with the law school
Yeah, I think we were
registration.
looking at May, but then we were
Yep.
also going to talk to the STAR committee about a collaboration. So that's really depending on if that collaboration moves forward and when they might be doing something in the summer. And
Yep.
then another trip in September.
Yep.
So, as chair of the STAR Council, I'm unaware of that. So, if Bonnie, you can email me about that, I'd appreciate it because we already have our STAR Summit date planned as well as the location.
Thanks, Kari. So I think I sent an email a couple months ago, but I did follow up with the staff. Who's the staff support? It was
It's Julianne Unite.
Okay. So yeah, so I will. So if you have those dates, I'm happy to engage with you, Kari, about what those dates are, so we can see if we would like. The idea for the second on the road is we would love to be able to kind of partner. If you are doing a summit out in some rural areas in Washington, we would love to be able to partner and to see how we can also maybe even do a collaborative.
Totally. So
Bonnie.
it's going to
Yep.
be June 26th in Ellensburg at Central Washington University.
Okay, June 26th. Okay, great. Thank you so much. And, all right, so those are the two. Chrissy, is there anything else that we talked about at that planning? I think we were just looking at dates, but the two closest, we were looking at Spokane and we are also looking at a rural location. All right. Moving on, next topic I have is liaison updates. So we have, I think at the last meeting, we firmed up all the liaison appointments for the ATJ board. I'm not going to name off all the different committee assignments and appointments, but the purpose of our liaison work with different bar association commissions and different commissions across the state is really to attend meetings when we can, really talk about where access to justice topics might come up in various different committee meetings, and also identify ways to work collaboratively and to serve as a conduit for ATJ board committee. And Kari, one of the things, I am actually right now the liaison to the STAR committee, and I apologize. I have not been to any of those meetings just because I have a work commitment that happens at the same time as your meetings then. But I do want to kind of give a liaison update. This past month, I did attend the WSBA BOG meeting in person, and it was actually a great opportunity for me just to meet Board of Governors meeting. I got to see Chris there. I also saw Yukari, and really kind of, and then also during the opening session, I did kind of did a quick introduction of myself as well as talking about our new mission, vision, values. And I'm also really excited that the ATJ board will be planning on having a meeting, being part of one of your BOG meetings in January 16th. I think we are on the agenda. The time hasn't been scheduled for us to have further conversations and think about what partnerships and relationships working with the Board of Governors. So we're really looking forward to that, having that conversation with the Board of Governors. And I also think that there's a dinner planned to kind of informally meet with board members the night on Thursday night. And both the meetings will take place in Seattle, Washington. And so looking forward to having a number of board members there and to also engage with thought partnership with the Board of Governor meeting. So that is my quick update on the liaison. Any questions for me from anybody? Great. And I just also want to recognize that Chris is our liaison. He's our Board of Governor liaison to the Access to Justice Board. And Kari is I think the president-elect for the WSBA. So it's great to have you both here in our meetings today. The next thing I'd like to do is any Equal Justice Coalition update. Is Nadia? I didn't see Nadia on this call, so I don't know if she's
I'm not
here.
seeing anyone from LFW right now.
Okay. And then also Abby's not on the call either for any updates. And Sarah gave her update, which was great before her meeting. And is Caitlin here? I don't think Caitlin's here either. All right. And the last 5 minutes is any other updates and announcements for the group. And this is our last board meeting of the year. And so this is one thing I know in the agenda meeting, we did talk about when our next meetings will be, and so that's that's listed. And then I also want to introduce our newest nominee to the Access to Justice Board, who is Leslie Diaz-Perez. Thank you so much for being here. Leslie is a triple LT out of the Spokane area, and so glad to have her as part of our nomination. Her nomination will be going to the Board of Governors, I think later this month, I believe, and hopefully the nomination will be approved, and then it'll be going on to the Supreme Court. So excited to have Leslie as part of our team, and it's great to have her here in our board meeting as well as our working session. Maya, is your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up regarding the judicial ethics opinion. I wanted to add one edit. The original drafter of the letter had one edit and so I just wanted to see if Bonnie, I don't know if we still have quorum, but
yeah, you can take the vote.
Okay. So if you can look at on page, I think 13 of the letter, if you look at 14 of the materials, at the very bottom where it suggests alternative language for the text message, to make it a little bit more specific and not vague, wanted to see if the suggestion we could provide is what's in the chat. Court Rule X requires plaintiff to timely and properly serve the defendant before a hearing. If a plaintiff does not follow this rule, their case may be dismissed without prejudice, rather than the example that we provided in the letter. So I just want to make sure that the board agrees with changing the suggestive alternative language for the text message, and we can adapt the letter with the new language.
Thanks, Maya. So what you're suggesting is the chat that says Court Rule X requires a plaintiff to timely and properly serve the defendant before a hearing. If a plaintiff doesn't follow this rule, their case may be dismissed without prejudice. And so that would replace what was in the red, the language in red?
It would replace if you do not properly complete service of the complaint, it may impact your case moving forward. Another way that I was thinking about, we can also amend it is by saying it may impact your case moving forward, comma, such as dismissed without prejudice. So it would either be the text in the chat or just adding that one of the ways in which it could impact your case is dismissed without prejudice.
I'm one of those visual learners that I actually have to see it in the text to actually figure out how the language would be. Is there any conversation about this edit to the letter?
Yeah, if I could get at least like an approval to maybe amend it, and then I can run it by maybe Nick one more time, just to see if he's because he's not here to be able to approve it.
Carla, I see your hand.
I like the idea of mentioning that it could be dismissed, but it seems like what's in the chat, the only thing that is different is adding the court rule. And it's pretty much the same language as what was previously in the letter. So I'm not sure if that's enough of a change.
So Carla, you're talking about the first part, right? The first part of the text that said in the message, court rule X requires the
Yes,
plaintiff.
because the
So adding
original
that in there.
the original text says advising them that if they have not timely and properly served the defendant, their case might be dismissed without prejudice.
Yeah, but if you look at the bottom, at the very last paragraph, the suggestion that we provide moving forward, we've believed that it was too vague. So I like Leslie's indication saying maybe plaintiff might be a little bit too confusing. So I think the edit that I'm asking to be moved forward is at the last paragraph. If you do not properly complete the service of your complaint, it may impact your case moving forward, such as it may be dismissed without prejudice. That is the add I want to suggest and get approved by the board.
Yeah, and I actually can't really speak to this. I think it would be better that Nick reviews, because I think that Nick had a reason to have it a little bit more broader sense of it. But I also see, Maya, your interest in being very explicit as to what the issue, right? What the problematic statement is. So maybe a motion could be that we adopt this, but you and Maya and Nick can have further conversations to finalize the letter. And if the board can approve whatever that language, approve that both Maya and Nick come up with that language. And I don't know, Carl, if you want to be part of that as well, because I know you had some thoughts on that too. But at least Maya and Nick.
And just to clarify, the board can't take votes by email. So I think the options are either taking an action now, giving authority to Maya and Nick to finalize the letter and send it, or be clear if you want them to bring it, if they make any edits, do you want them to bring it back to the January meeting? Just be clear about that.
And Maya, the timeline on this, you wanted to have it done this month, is that right? Was it time sensitive, or could it wait to January?
I mean, the longer we wait, the longer it takes to change. And I know that there's movement happening in other spaces. So I would want to be able to at least do something before the end of the year. But if the the board wants to see the revised letter with the new edits, that's understandable as well. Just would take longer.
Yeah.
I,
Well, I
I guess
support
I,
just having, oh yeah, go ahead, Sergio.
sorry, I guess I have a question of, I support changing the language, but I'm wondering why, what changed between when we took the vote with how the language is and now?
Yes, great question. I touched base with the technology committee, the original drafter of the email, while we were in our working session, and they replied nearly just like moments after we did the vote. So that's the reason why I'm bringing it up again. So the original
Thank you.
drafter drafted the letter. We sent it to the rules committee. They made the edits, sent it back to them, and then that's the edits that they have.
I'm happy to make a motion to allow Maya and Nick to finalize the language and send after they both come up with the final language.
Do I hear a second to that motion?
I would second that.
Okay, so it's moved in second. Any discussion? And the motion on the table is Maya and Nick will finalize the letter and send this letter off on behalf of the ATJ board. Okay. Any discussion? Closing discussion. All in favor, please raise your hand. Great. All opposed? Great. Well, that will be the last action of the day and of the year. Thank you, Maya, for providing this last minute amendment. And thank you all for being part of today's meeting. Looking forward to a wonderful next year and hope you all have a safe holiday this year. You all right? Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.